Hello, hello. Welcome, welcome. I'm working on a quick post to go ahead and try to entice a few more people in live. So I'm going to just briefly mute myself for a moment. Alright, so yeah, that's a thing. I normally have post ideas well before the stream, and today was just like blah. My brain was so busy, like, just trying to get us more on track as far as where I've been previously with a lot of the prompts. Most of the prompts I've had penciled in, or at least more of an idea than a couple of these prompts that kind of like fell apart lately. So let's go ahead and get the camera righted and moved around. Apparently I was up closer to me than yesterday. So yeah, all the fun stuff. Yeah, winds up being a little bit of a mad dash some days to go ahead and get started, so my apologies there. I do want to thank you so much for joining me today. And doing a quick check on Twitch just to make sure it looks like everything's going well with the stream. And for those of you in the replay, thank you so much for joining me as well. It's kind of weird talking to people in the future. I guess it's one of those things that I gotta get used to. I do have the volume up a little more than yesterday, so knock that down just a touch. And you'll have to forgive me, allergies are a thing. Apparently Mother Nature's got menopause, because in my area of the country, we just had 80-degree weather for most of the past week, and now suddenly we're back in the 40s, and it's probably more so dust in my case because of switching between an AC and a heat unit, a heater here where I'm staying at. So, fun stuff. So I'll probably be momentarily quiet a couple times between well, there's no polite way to say that, but I guess the nicest way is just because of my sinuses. Alright, so down to business. Wonderland's progressing pretty nicely. Since yesterday we left off, I have glazed over some of the area in the keyhole a bit more to go ahead and try to push that depth a little bit better. My wash on the curtain did not quite succeed. I need to go back in and glaze that a little bit more as well. But I was trying to soften well, it would actually be on this side, soften this edge of the shadow to blend in better. It didn't quite go as well as I had hoped. So I'm going to be probably fidgeting with that off and on. Now's a good time for me to start working on glazes to go ahead and bring more depth into some areas. So in the case of the White Rabbit, I did some glazes on him. So he's getting pretty well developed at this point. Let's go ahead and do a quick zoom. And I'm not even going to go full zoom because I'm going to pick this up and show it to you. Which means I should get my phone stand out of the way. Less likely to bump into it. And move that on my desk. Alright. So, we have some depth going on with the White Rabbit. Most of that shading was just really, really pale washes of neutral tint. I still need to add a little bit here to actually like define edges before I go ahead and erase my my pencil lines. But for the most part, what you see is paint, not so much graphite. I've darkened the eye. That was a mix of the Pyroline Maroon and neutral tint, just a touch of neutral tint to take that value a little bit darker. I'm thinking maybe I should have tried just the Pyroline Maroon just to see how dark that value got, because at this scale it might be better. I still have to add the just a touch of the bleed-proof white to go ahead and give the eye that spark of life. For the inside of the ear, that is mostly quinacridone coral with just a touch of quinacridone gold to tip it slightly more to the orange side. And then a little bit of neutral tint to go ahead and desaturate that just a touch. Still need to put the shadows in for the pocket watch, as well as the clock face itself. And also the color of the vest, which I think I'll go with black, and then I'll do maybe like a maroon for the back. A lot of times vests tend to have contrasting fabric for the back. So I'll go with that. What else? The tea party itself has gotten a bit more festive since we last left it. I do need to add a little bit of a pennant behind the Hatter's leg. Did not think about that earlier, but there would be one right about there. So this one ends and that one begins. Alright, and we also have a plate full of tea cakes. We have a little compote jar. I'm thinking that might be in like a stoneware type of crock up there by the dormouse. I did go ahead and start doing a little bit of lifting around where the spoon is, and I still need to pop in highlights and go ahead and clean up this edge. I'm not happy with the shape of the spoon so far, but it is able to be fixed and reworked. I'm not worried about it. I may actually go in there with a colored pencil later on. And as always in the streams, you're welcome to go ahead and give me questions, comments, anything about our topics of the day, especially in the case of Wonderland. I'm always happy to hear comments. Alright, so where I'm at, I'm kind of in a debate, which if I have anyone live, you're welcome to go ahead and comment about this debate. I could fit more stuff on this table. I could definitely add to it, but the question is, should we skip the drawing and go right into painting, and I can add more elements later, or do you want to see me draw in some more? In the meantime, I'm just going to get all this in the way of eraser bits off and out of the way. And drop my pencil in the drop my pencil as well. Here we go. Get rid of that stray pencil mark there. I really need to put the Hatter's face in. This is kind of driving me nuts. I did go ahead and erase some of the pencil around the dormouse, which is why he's looking a little bit blurry. Lost his whiskers on one side, in fact. So I do need to go in and pop some more detail on him, but that could be done at a later time, because I am most concerned about sticking with our prompts here. Alright. So, nobody commented in the chat, that is fine. I will just do my own thing. With these tea cakes, I probably do want to knock down just a bit more of the pencil. Just trying to sketch pretty lightly so I don't have to spend much time doing this. But with such light colors on cakes, I want to make sure that you don't just have a bunch of graphite sticking through the yellow bits of the cake. That plate edge really needs to be refined. Alright. So for the moment, I have the #1 Silver Sterling Studio 6000S round. And going into this, I think I'll go into the compote first. And just checking where my mic is in relation to my face. That should be alright. We're gonna go with a nice jammy type color. I feel like the quinacridone rose from M. Graham would be a nice fit for that, at least for the initial wash. Go ahead and tilt this over this way. Hopefully my camera is cooperating. We'll have the autofocus hopefully staying over here on our dormouse. That is a slightly stronger color mix than I was planning to start with. So I'm going to lift out just a touch of that after I clean my brush, because I want it to be slightly translucent and allow you to see some of the darker bits that I'll add. It's not really a compote unless you see bits of fruit. And it doesn't even need to be even or anything, because they do settle at random in the container. I would add a little bit of jam to the end of the spoon, but not until I refine that later, so that's happy as it is. And moving along, I used the quinacridone coral on the cake frosting because I wanted to go a little bit away from doing reds on this part of Wonderland, because this is, to me, like the Hatter's territory. It's a lot more blues and greens and purples. I wanted to tone down any red elements and shift them away. So pink's okay, coral's okay, but nothing specifically red. I wanted to be careful in how I place that around the image. Yeah, now that I'm looking at it, the white rabbit's eye is going to make me crazy. I'm probably going to lift that out as carefully as possible. It's just slightly too dark for what I prefer. And apologies, I need to get a tissue. Right. Thank you again for your patience. Let's get some painting done on this table. So I'm going to go in with that quinacridone coral. I'm just kind of figuring out a spot where I can put it on this palette. That'll work. I have this. This palette is still pretty new to me. This is the second. Yeah, second. Yeah, it might be a third. It might be the third piece that I'm doing with this, and it's kind of still feeling out where I'm using mixing wells, how I'm cleaning stuff out, whether or not cleaning stuff out. I'm trying new ways to work. So while I'm feeling that out, and it makes some of this a little more interesting. I think I'm first going to do some random dollops of frosting along the edges of this cake. And this is something I'm probably going to leave these here. I normally wouldn't want to leave such bubbles of pigment sitting around, but this will give me like a hard line, and that's not something I would mind for this situation. So that'll give me less detail to paint in later. It's the angle just a touch. Hopefully that's focused pretty well. It is. Yay! With with the color value that these are, probably pretty easy to mistake them for strawberries. And probably would be a great color to use for painting some strawberries. That one's a little high. That's alright. Leaves me a little more room to do this one. Sometimes I miss doing cakes. I used to do a bit of icing and help ice for a catering company ages ago. This cramps your hand a lot worse. English. Doing the watercolor icing is less cramping for your hands than actually frosting a cake is. Should have just enough pigment to finish getting these done. Then later on I'll just do a light glaze of the quinacridone coral on the cake itself to go ahead and give that some more color. Luckily we have a couple areas where I can kind of jump around. I'm trying to think of interesting colors to go ahead and do for these tea cakes with their frosting, and also get back to this playlist. So I grabbed that same really short one from yesterday. And let's get another playlist going. There we go. I found one called Magical Wonder. Sounds like that should work. Doing a quick skim of overall track times and how many are on the list. This should get us through the rest of the stream. So we'll see how that goes. I'm still kind of all over the place behind the scenes as far as nailing down some more things for the stream. I do need to start actually like downloading these and creating playlists. And I just haven't quite been there. Right, and for these tea cakes, maybe like some lemony yellow, maybe some like lavenders. Even go with some greens. I think we'll vary our little blobs of frosting and whatnot on this plate. Since I said yellow, it's basically like, okay, we need to almost have no pencil lines if we're doing yellow. See like the subtle hint that was captured down here in the gold edge of our teacups. So right now I am grabbing just a touch of the buff titanium and a bit of the Hansa yellow medium. And I want that to be fairly watery. Just blot a teeny bit, mostly getting extra moisture off the belly of the brush, not so much the pigment. I forget if I mentioned earlier that today's prompt is birthday. I'm probably only going to do 2 or 3 of these in the yellow. So I want to make sure that I have some that have really good contrast with the like the yellowy tan type of tones that you have with baked goods. This is at a pretty small scale, so you're not going to get a ton of detail here. I might go in later with like a more intense yellowy orange tone, like the new gamboge type tone that I have sitting on the palette here. And I guess this one, why not? Kind of put them randomly on the plate. I'll go ahead and do a secondary pass with the other colors for the tea cakes. Like I said, I was thinking maybe a lavender type tone. So I'll grab a little bit more of the buff titanium for that, and what's left over of the quinacridone violet and dioxazine violet mix. I'm going a little bit heavier with the buff titanium this time. And the reason for that is to make sure that this mix is different enough that that you'll still be able to see it. I want it to have some contrast with over here. I'm still heavy on the buff titanium side, so I'm grabbing a touch more like the dioxazine. Just a bit. Yeah, that's better. I want to make sure that it's actually going to read enough as purple. And just the Quin Violet was a little bit too much, not enough contrast. That's a good mix. And we'll do this one over here. Basically, I want all this frosting to have a good bit of time to be drying before I go ahead and do any glazing for the effect of baked goods. While we're waiting for all these glazes to dry, then I'll be able to jump down to do the pendants, which will add a really nice pop of color over here. I'm debating the color for the tablecloths in the meantime. We have one more tea cake. Let's vary that a bit. Yeah, we'll go with a green. All these I'm doing the bit of buff titanium. Wow, I can English. And let's see. I think this is some leftover sap green with a little bit of, it's either the Hansa yellow or it might actually be a bit of the rich green gold, since it's a puddle of like a variation of colors. That's questionable what colors I grabbed, but it is a nice little minty shade. I probably could have gone a little bit stronger with the buff titanium. That's okay. We'll give them a little bit more height. Alright, so now we'll go ahead and shift the focus down just a touch. Probably need to move the camera forward, actually. I like to try to give a little bit of warning whenever I'm going to adjust the camera, just in case you're sensitive to movement, that it's not too jarring. And then we can go ahead and block in some colors for these pendants. Like I said, I'm still going to be staying away from reds. I feel like that's nothing directly red. Maybe red adjacent. Let's see. Well, I still have a bit of that Quin Violet mix. I'm going to tilt that a little bit more towards pure Quin Violet. And I'm adding just a touch more water. Such a pretty color. No, I'm not doing any particular pattern, so I'm just going to grab maybe like 2 more of these. And we'll just grab those and we'll do this at random. I have plenty of colors on my palette that we don't have to worry about doubling up and quote-unquote messing that up where something's going to be duplicated. There we go. We'll let this one be a little bit more variegated. Down here, it'll help imply some shading. And one more. I'm gonna go with the one close to his leg. I'm trying to make these random. I know I'm already doing a pattern. They have 3 in between each iteration of the color. Probably an OCD thing. And I need to touch more water. I need to fill my water jar a little higher. It seems to be just a little lower than I normally have it. I'll keep thinking I'm grabbing like a drop of water on the tip of the brush, just to find I didn't load it at all. So far I've been painting these with 1 water cup, but if I were doing larger washes, I would definitely use 2. And that would be, so you have 1 cup to be your dirty water, and then you would have the other cup to grab clean water from in order to do your mixes, and you'll be less likely to have color contamination. It's definitely an optimal way to work. My desk is pretty small, so I haven't been bothering with the 2nd cup. So because I'm working on tiny things, my water cup, I normally don't change it for like a couple days of these streams because it's just not that much pigment in there. If I truly needed clean water, I do have a little spray bottle of water, so I am able to just spritz that onto the palette if I need to go ahead and grab some plain water. But a little bit of contamination isn't bothering me because it helps to go ahead and naturally mute some of these colors, and that way they're not so vibrant that they're basically making your eyes pop out. Now, while I'm rambling here, I'm thinking that our signpost needs some more love. Are there any favorite locations in Wonderland that you'd like to see on our signpost? Right now I just have Jabberwock and Mad Tea, but I feel like maybe I should swap those out for official names of places in Wonderland. You'll have to let me know if you know any. Alright, so we'll go ahead and continue on with our pendants here. I think I'm going to grab a bit of the Cobalt Teal Blue. It is one of my favorite blues. And I think I accidentally grabbed just a touch of sap green because these slices are close together. And that's okay. I wouldn't mind it leaning a little bit more green or a little more blue. And just get a color we're happy with. Great, and then a quick blot over here, just because I have water on my ferrule. And a little dab on the belly of the brush too. We'll go with a brighter color. Yeah, I kind of like this particular playlist so far. It does feel very Danny Elfman and like Edward Scissorhands-ish. Snow Dance is one of my favorite songs from the soundtracks. Alright, and then we're gonna see if my brain will break the pattern. Let's see, we'll do that right in the middle. No pattern here. Alright, and grabbing some phthalo green yellow shade. So we have some colors that are a bit more punchy. Though I'm going to add a touch more water to this mix. Yeah, it should be pretty good. Alright, and we'll go over here. And I'll make sure my camera is moved. Or at least my paint board is moved so you can actually see what I'm doing. See if the autofocus will stay right there. This is a color that is fairly new to me. I've used a lot of phthalo green blue shade. It seems to be that a lot of artists use that on their palette, and that's kind of where I was for a while with getting a feel for what other artists are using. Then, I don't know, I felt like it would be nice to see the yellow shade and how that differs from the blue shade. So now it's here, and it's currently working on the palette. I've done a lot of bright colors, not so much muted stuff. Like I'll have moments where there's muted elements, but Wonderland is I don't know, not a place to go too realistic, I feel like. You have to let me know your thoughts. Let's see. I'm gonna grab some orange. I've really leaned away from orange tones over here other than the Hatter's hair. This is Scarlet Pyrrole. Not to be confused with Pyrrole Scarlet. Yeah, I'm not even going to do a full square with this because it is so bright. That's a very bright orange. It is a bit opaque. Not as opaque as like a cadmium. It is a pretty strong pigment. I've really enjoyed using it for some skin tones with Purulene Violet. Let's see if I have an example. I'm trying to think, where's Marcia? Marcia's over here on my desk somewhere. Yeah, there she is. Somewhere in this handful. No, she's not in this handful. Other stuff over here. And that's as much searching as I'm going to do, because I'm not trying to hold up the stream for details down. So maybe I'll find Marcia tomorrow. But it was really, really good for like blush on some people. You go ahead and thin that down. It's a very healthy, like lively pink tone. I'm not altogether in love with that orange there. I feel like we had almost an analogous thing going on with the blues and the greens and the purples. I feel like that orange is kind of an eyesore. I think I might try to lift that. I'm trying to think, what would I put over it? I could put a coral over there. I'll just bring us a little closer. This is what I get for being indecisive sometimes. I didn't lift much. Actually, instead of putting actual quinacridone coral there, I might do a quin rose instead. And it'll give us a coral effect because not all of this is going to lift. Try to use my brush a little bit to help lift some of the pigment away. That's probably as light as that's gonna get. Or at least that's as much as I'm going to work on it. Right here. I just grabbed a little bit of the M-gram quinacridone rose. It's a little bit of a warmer tone. I could probably glaze this with the quinacridone lilac instead. And just pulling some of that puddle off. It's still a bit vibrant, but I think it's in a much better place already. I don't mind the things being vibrant. It's just, I don't know. It's a weird balance of like things being gaudy. I'm going in with a bit of the dioxazine violet. And trying to correct this point that went a bit awry. That should be alright. Since working on this painting, I'm definitely noticing this detail brush is getting a little worn, and that's gonna happen. I've been painting a lot of details. You consider that, you know, how small everything is on here, and that I didn't break out the spotter until, was that 2 days ago, prompt-wise? And I can't. Okay. I had to talk to see where my volume level is compared to the music. Hopefully everything's a good level. I think I'm about where I was. That is still a bit bright. I'm going to glaze over that. I could do some neutral tint to go ahead and mute that color. I could do Purulene Violet. I think I'm going to try the Purulene Violet though. Hoping that I don't neutralize it too far, where it just looks like the Quinn Violet that is right next to it. It'll go kind of like a mulberry-ish tone. We'll see how that dries. Oh, it's a weird balance of bright and festive, but not garish. Alright, and then back to the dioxazine. Last night was a weird moment for me as far as art-wise. I finished up a commission, went to go ahead and remove the masking tape, and the paper peeled ridiculously. And that was not a fun moment. So I'm still, I don't know, I guess in a weird space from that. Figuring out, like I have an idea for the solution, but having it in mind and doing it are two different things. And this is the phthalo green blue shade. And I better keep on moving. Realizing we only have about 10 minutes left, and I have not gotten back to any of the glazes on that table. I'm going to pop in a touch of the phthalo blue turquoise for back there. I'll grab one more color for over here. I think I'll go with the phthalo blue red shade. Later on I'll go ahead and add the string in with a touch of neutral tint. And kind of favoring that for a lot of the neutrals here, except for minor spots where it's like a little bit of sepia for a little warmer, and a bit of the Payne's Gray for the blue cast on the bottle. I feel like that's an interesting mix for our garland here. Right, and I'm going to go ahead and grab the tiniest little bit of the phthalo blue turquoise And just kind of like a lot of cartoons tend to do like a bluish effect on plates. I'm gonna do that for this inner line. I probably have done that with a bit of Payne's Gray instead, but that's what I was feeling. Just a touch. Alright, so I'm going to grab a bit of the Purely Maroon. I put that in the wrong spot. I have it mixed up with some Purely Violet. Don't like that. I do make a nice like burgundy tone together. I already have a spot for the Purely Maroon on my palette. This is currently plain water. I'm just dotting the eye. Let that sit for a moment. And I'm gonna blot it up a little bit. This was Purely Maroon and neutral tint. I'm gonna go ahead and create depth for that eye, but I think it went too far. That looks a little bit better. I just went on that with a little too much thickness. And back to Purely Maroon. This is going to give us our little chunks of fruit in the compote. And just random blobs. And later on we'll go back in there with the spotter brush and the bleed proof white, and that'll give us our shiny bits to the fruit compote. I do want to give that the stoneware effect, so I'm going to do a really light glaze of just some buff titanium for now. And I'm only going to do that on this side. I don't want to get too close to where the fruit is. I don't think I touched any of that to the edge. But I'd rather be cautious anyway. Alright, so we have just a slight glaze there. This will be probably buff titanium with a touch of neutral tint to go ahead and give a shadow on this side, on the inside. And then let's go ahead and glaze our cake. I'm going a little thin for the quinacridone coral for our cake frosting. I want to make sure I leave myself a good chance to add a bit of shading later on. I'll do the very edge line where the frosting would be on the side. And at the scale, I'm not going to worry too much about painting around all of that frosting. Just going to try to be quick, not really leave the pigment sitting still. Just pull that over, down, and out of the way. That's why I wanted to do that as kind of a thin glaze. And we'll see how that dries. I might go ahead and get rid of my edges, and that's okay. I can go ahead and redevelop that with glazes later. I forgot while my brush was there. Go ahead and do our for a bit of filling. Sorry. Brush in hand. It's hard to mute. Alright, so I'm still here. I'm just unfortunately dealing with allergies. Fun stuff. So we'll get back to our tea cakes then, while we're waiting for the other glazes to dry. And let's find a nice yellowy brown shade. What I wound up doing with the cake over here was, initially I think it was Hansa yellow, and I've dotted it with Quinn gold, and I've gone back over it with a little bit of raw sienna. I think I want to try to skip doing so much, and instead go with just a bit of the raw sienna first, and do that a bit thin, and then later on we can go back and glaze that however we need to, whether it's tilting it a little more yellow or a little bit more brown. And actually I think I'm just going to really, really thin with it. Trying to move the pigment around a good bit, because I'm seeing this is a little bit dark for the value with the versus the value of the lemon cake frosting. Yeah, this is why I wanted to do that kind of cautiously, and luckily raw sienna is a little bit easier to go ahead and lift. So then I'll need a little bit more work to go ahead and help define forms later. Alright, so I've actually went ahead and remixed our raw sienna with a bit more water, and then I've blotted a good bit off the belly of the brush. Well, hopefully this will be a little bit better value-wise. At this point that's almost a whisper of color. And that's okay, but I think we're on the right track going later. I'll go back over and lift a little bit more of that. Mostly it's not so much the color, it's more so how hard these edges got really, really easily. I might need to do that again. That's alright. It definitely screams being a baked good, which I like. I'm debating what else I'm going to do on this table later on. And we are about at time, so I'm just going to finish glazing these cakes with the initial yellow wash. And taking a look at this, I know that I'm definitely going to be doing a bit more work as far as more stuff on this table, because I do want to include more. I grabbed some of that yellowish orange mix that I still had on the palette before. Yeah, I'm kind of rushing this a little bit, but like I at least want a glaze on this cake part, and I can go ahead and texture that later on. Alright, so to go ahead and take a look at tomorrow's prompt. Going ahead and grabbing that. This is the list from Artistic Isle. They posted it on their Instagram page, and I was like, yes, I want to do this challenge. I was like, okay, well, how can I make this challenge work? And I decided the best way to make the challenge work was to go ahead and just dive into it. And tomorrow's prompt is Cheshire Cat, which I should have remembered because in honor of the Cheshire Cat, I was very inspired to do a two-tone nail polish scheme based on the classic Disney version. So we have pink and purple going on in stripes, if my camera will choose to focus on my hands for a moment. We have pink and purple stripes, and then we have two tones of blue stripes, kind of a teal and a darker blue. So, I don't know, what do you think? Go with the original, or, well, I guess Disney or Tim Burton. I'll put it that way, even though the Burton one was financed by Disney. I think he has enough of a unique vision. I'll list him specifically. See, my edges are garbage. They're not all cleaned up, but oh well. Fun stuff. We move forward with a good bit on the table. I feel happy that birthday is definitely an obvious theme at this point. I'll probably go back in, pop in some more glazes later. And I gotta decide on tablecloth color, as I feel like it's time to get more color in the backgrounds of things, because that's been slow going. Alright, so that's going to be it for today. So we end with the dramatic music. Thanks so much for joining me, and I look forward to catching up with you tomorrow, having the Cheshire Cat figured out. And keep on painting.